Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Writer's Block, or if you're here for the first time, just welcome. We are 2 weeks into January, and I'm hoping it's not too late to reflect back on what I felt were the best shows of 2022. Best and worst. I want to contrast the two. Also, I'm going to try to do this in one take, and I've got some neurological issues with my hands that make it painful to use the computer for extensive editing, so I'm trying something new with my setup here, camera and microphone, and bear with me through the hums and haws and ums and likes and stuttering and mispronunciations of words. But yeah, let's get started. Let's dive right in to the best shows of 2022, in my opinion. Granted that I didn't see every show in 2022. I missed some big ones that I have yet to catch up on and may never see, such as House of the Dragon. That's just not really my brand. Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin. But maybe someday I'll catch up on that stuff. I never got into Game of Thrones, though I did read the first book. So I won't be listing House of Dragon on this show. Other shows I just skipped because I wasn't interested, like Miss Marvel. It seemed like it was aimed at a different audience, and I've kind of lost interest in the Disney Marvel stuff. I feel like there's just way too much content. I can't keep up with it, and the shows have gotten progressively worse, in my opinion. I didn't even finish Hawkeye or She-Hulk, and those will be making an appearance on my worst of 2022, spoiler alert. But let's start with the good, shall we? Good news first. So, honorable mention's going to go to Cobra Kai, which season 5, I believe, came out this year. I'm not sure. I'd need to look that up. But I started watching the whole show this year. Season 1 was surprisingly good, and I just binged the whole thing with my wife, and we really liked it. She had never even seen The Karate Kid, so we watched that as well. And what I love about this show is that it knows exactly what it is. It's campy, it's heartfelt, it's often kind of melodramatic, but it knows exactly what it is, and it just delivers on its promises. I think season 1 still is the best season for Cobra Kai, but I've enjoyed every season, and I really enjoyed season 5 that came out this year on Netflix, I think. Another honorable mention to Arcane, which came out last year, but I caught it this year. Another one of those. This was an animated show on Netflix, and I'd heard great things about it. I actually heard about it, I think, through Brandon Sanderson's YouTube channel. And I had friends that grew up playing Dota and League of Legends and those type of games. And I played some with them, but I never really got into it. So this wasn't a show that was on my radar. But I watched it, and I loved it. I've never really been convinced. I've never really been into animated shows and movies that much. But this show has changed my opinion on that. Especially because I've heard a lot of people online, I've seen a lot of chatter online about people saying they'd love to see something like Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive or Cosmere adapted in like an anime format or an animated format. And every time I saw that, I just didn't catch the vision. But when I saw this show, it completely changed my mind. And I thought, yes, live action would be really hard to do for the Cosmere, but a show like Arcane, like that style of animation and storytelling, if it was crafted that well, then absolutely that could be a great avenue for adapting the Cosmere. Although it may not have as big of an audience. That might be the only downside. But you could change some people's ideas like mine was changed. So let's get into the best shows of 2022. I've got 4 that I really liked. Number 4, Stranger Things Season 4. I saw season 1 of Stranger Things when it premiered, before it blew up. I was sick at home in bed, just kind of browsing through Netflix, and I saw the show. It was like the day it came out, and I just started watching it, and I was just immediately hooked by the storytelling and I thought it was really great, and the characters and the world and the mystery and the intrigue, and I just binged through the whole thing. And then I was like calling my brother like, hey, you gotta watch this show. And then my wife came home and she was, I was like, hey, you gotta watch this show. And so I watched the whole thing again with her. That's kind of the only time that I've really done that. It was, and then, so it was a unique situation, and that show's always going to have a unique place in my heart. And then season 2 came out, and we really enjoyed season 2. Season 3 came out, and it wasn't as good as the first 2 seasons in my opinion, but it was still enjoyable. And that big break between seasons 3 and 4, I thought that the first season has been the best by far, and the other seasons have been good, but getting a little bit weaker each time. Except for season 4, I feel like things really came back home, and there were some really incredible moments in season 4, like Max just running up that hill. Like, that's probably one of the greatest moments in the show's history. I feel like this was the best it's been since season 1, although some criticism that I might lend to it is that I think some of the episodes were overly long. The first season really benefited from like this tight made-for-television formatting back before shows really just kind of did whatever length they wanted. Season 1 felt like it could have aired on television with those. It was like a tight 40 minutes with like breaks for commercials and everything, even though the show I don't think has ever aired on TV. But then by the time we get to season 4, we've got episodes that are basically feature film length, and I think things could have been broken up more or tightened down and edited down. I think some of those constraints can be beneficial to the format for television. So that's my number 4 pick. My number 3 pick is Andor on Disney+. Disney's Star Wars has been controversial. Some people really like it, though they kind of seem like they're in the minority if you just judge by the temperature online of comments and stuff like that. Myself, I've been underwhelmed by Disney's Star Wars. I liked Episode 7. I thought it was like a great reintroduction into the world. Episode 8, I'm not a hater like a lot of people. Like, a lot of people just hate this so much. I think there's good elements in Episode 8. There's a good story somewhere in there. I just don't think it was in the final draft. By the time I left the theater, I felt really cold. That's how I remember leaving the theater after Episode 8. And I was just wondering, like, where are they going to take this story? And then Episode 9 came out, and it became apparent to me, it was like, oh, it was a disaster. I think Episode 9 is the worst Star Wars movie. It's down there with Attack of the Clones. And Episode 9 came out, and it just became apparent that, Disney had no plan for Star Wars. They spent billions of dollars on this beloved franchise, and they did not really have a plan for this thing. They were just kind of making it up as they went along. And that, to me, was baffling. And I liked The Mandalorian. I thought it was entertaining, though it often felt stilted to me. And often just kind of a little bit dry. I don't really know how to explain it. Like, it wasn't... The acting wasn't always excellent. I felt like a lot of the episodes were really just kind of like standalone stories that were kind of just like mashed together. It didn't really flow. But overall, I did enjoy The Mandalorian. And then Boba Fett came out, and it was just kind of boring. I never really finished it. I watched a few episodes with my wife. We kind of would forget about it. There was nothing hooking us, wanting us to get to the next episode. And then what came out after that? Obi-Wan Kenobi was terrible. This is definitely on my list of worst shows for this year. One, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The other is one of the worst shows of this year, I thought. And then Andor, one of the greatest, and complete outlier, underdog, came out of nowhere. Obi-Wan Kenobi was just this weird show. Missed opportunity, just like the sequel trilogy, where they're bringing back Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. It should have been a slam dunk, but this show was so poorly written and acted and executed, and the set designs were weird, and you just kind of felt that you were on a set. You didn't feel like you were in a world often. it just didn't work for me, and so I wasn't really looking forward to Andor. I saw the trailer online, and I actually thought like, oh, that looks pretty good, but Star Wars, you fooled me once, I'm not going to be fooled again. Well, you fooled me quite a few times, actually. Star Wars is a huge part of my childhood. I remember watching those movies as a little kid for the first time, going to the video store with my mom to rent them from Blockbuster and bringing them home and watching them, just being completely enthralled, and I loved the original trilogy. And I have a little bit of a fondness for the prequels, even though I recognize that they are objectively bad. And Rogue One, which I failed to mention in this extended monologue, Rogue One I thought was a pretty good film. The beginning it sort of had a hard time getting going and establishing characters and everything, but it was overall a fun time. I really liked the last act of Rogue One a lot. Getting there was kind of a bumpy ride. But no one was asking for Andor, and it came out of nowhere, at least because I'm not keeping up on Star Wars news, but I didn't even watch the first few episodes when it came out. I was just kind of like, I'm done with Star Wars. But then I started hearing good things about it. I started seeing some positive reviews from people that I trust online. And so I started watching it, and I loved Andor. I thought it was really well done. It was a cohesive story with great characters. The sets were awesome. The action pieces were awesome. Yes, sometimes it was a slow burn, but I felt like it was a slow build to a great payoff. You can have a slow burn if you have good payoff and great characters, and this film did that for me, or show, right? But it was produced on a level where it could have been a film. It was excellent, and I'm hoping this isn't a one-off for Disney, that this one just somehow escaped the ranks of the terrible Star Wars content that we have been getting and broke through and is just a unicorn, so to speak. I'm hoping that we get more Star Wars like this in the future, because this, in my opinion, is the best that Star Wars has been since the original trilogy, definitely since Disney took over. And it kind of gives me hope and excitement for Star Wars in the future, but we'll see what happens. It's also, what I really loved about it was the way that they portrayed the Empire. The Empire actually felt like this menacing machine for the first time since the original trilogy. So yeah, Andor, number 3 favorite show. Number 2 favorite show, a little bit off-brand because it's not science fiction or fantasy for me, but it's Better Call Saul season 6. I'm a big Breaking Bad fan. I love Breaking Bad. I think it's one of the best shows ever made, and it's like the opposite of science fiction and fantasy, right? It's realism. This universe is all about just like hit you with the harsh realities of life and consequences for your actions in this web of lies and this dark world of drugs. And Better Call Saul season 6 was excellent. It was a fantastic ending to what is likely the best prequel ever made. They did it right. I think this show easily stands up next to Breaking Bad. Sometimes I actually like it a little bit better than Breaking Bad. The show features fantastic characters, tastefully done tie-ins to Breaking Bad, something that's really hard to do in a prequel, and it fits seamlessly into the Breaking Bad universe without really breaking any lore or anything. The final season saw many characters return, great characters from earlier seasons, like the Kettlemans from season 1, as we continued this downward spiral of Jimmy McGill becoming Saul Goodman. And man, this show it included some really tragic endings for beloved characters, unexpected ways, and overall, I just think that I love this show. I highly recommend it. I'd watched like the first 3 seasons years ago, and then for whatever reason I stopped watching the show just because there were some bigger breaks in between seasons, and I just didn't keep up with it. I was really busy in my personal life and my work, and so I binge watched the whole thing with my wife while I've had these neurological issues in my hands. I've been doing a lot of like physical therapy, and resting. Can't really like be on the computer doing other things that I'd like to be doing. And so I watched the whole show with my wife while I do my physical therapy, and we just loved it. We got through season 6, and it's over, and it was just the perfect ending to one of the greatest shows in our day, in our time, definitely in the last decade. So great show. And my number one pick for the best show of 2022 is Severance on Apple TV Plus. I love to see original sci-fi content, and like this isn't like sci-fi, right, in the realm of like spaceships and really, really advanced technology and that kind of stuff. But it is sci-fi in like the near future with this technology, this severing of your personal and your work life, and basically becoming two different beings. It's just such a brilliant and original concept, beautifully executed. I loved the cinematography. I loved the actors and the characters and the way that they were portrayed. And it was thought-provoking and bizarre, and I loved every minute. I was completely enthralled from beginning to end. I can't wait to see what future seasons do. I really hope they can keep up the quality of the writing and the production. And I think this is the best new show I've seen in years. It's just really refreshing to get some original content. I think, everything else on my list has pretty much been based on something else. Better Call Saul's prequel to Breaking Bad. Andor is in the Star Wars universe, a big franchise. Stranger Things, big franchise, season 4. Cobra Kai is based on The Karate Kid. Arcane is based on, is it League of Legends? Sorry if I got that wrong, but this is original, and I think for that reason alone, it needs to be getting a lot more attention. I loved the show. Definitely check it out if you can. I think you can get like a free trial of Apple Plus, TV Plus pretty easily. And then on the flip side of the coin, really quick, we're just going to touch on the worst shows of 2022. If I was a smarter YouTuber, I would do this in a separate YouTube video, and I would have this thing tightly edited with lots of memes and stuff, but I just physically can't do that right now. So I'm just going to go through these really quickly. We already touched on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ugh, terrible show. Boba Fett, I already touched on it. I think that came out at the end of 2021, technically, but a lot of episodes came out early this year. Skip it. Who cares? She-Hulk. I love Daredevil. This is the only reason that I was drawn to the show. Netflix's Daredevil, I think, is a fantastic show. I'm really sad that it's canceled. I wish it was ongoing, that Disney kept that thing alive and they weren't like doing like a soft reboot of Daredevil, but keeping Charlie Cox. I love Daredevil. Daredevil, even before the show, has been one of my favorite comic book characters, if not my favorite. I just think he's such a unique hero, and he got such a great story, and so that's my biggest complaint with She-Hulk. I know there's a lot of other complaints out there, and a lot of them I agree with. I think the show kind of is bad, and it seems more like it's interested in trolling its audience than delivering like a great show, a great compelling show. But I don't like what they did with Daredevil. The show I thought was just kind of bad, and what's going on with Marvel stuff right now? Yeah, like Star Wars and Marvel, those are huge parts of my childhood, and I just feel like they've gone downhill, but Andor gives me hope. Hopefully something better can come of Marvel in the future, but who knows? It's not looking good based on the current trajectory. And the worst show of 2021, undoubtedly, was Rings of Power. I've made lots of videos on Rings of Power and why it's the worst show, and my opinion has not really changed. I tried to go into this show with an open mind, tried not to pay attention to the noise, because I love The Lord of the Rings, I love the original films, I love the books, and this show just did everything wrong. It did the opposite of what it should have done. It didn't have the focus on the right characters. It had the wrong characterizations of existing characters. It was poorly written, bad dialogue. There were entire episodes filled with fluff. It was it episode 5? You could have skipped episode 5 completely, gone from episode 4 to episode 6, and not missed a beat. This show was terrible. And they act like it's online, like it's the greatest show ever, but I think the truth is really out there. I think Amazon's just... Who cares? I don't want to get into it too much. But yes, the worst show, 2022, goes to Rings of Power. All right, so that's my thoughts on the shows that came out in 2022. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you're new here, stick around. Bear with me through these issues I'm having with my hands. I hope to have them resolved within the month. I'm looking at a prospective surgery, though I'm weighing the risks and benefits of that right now. And thanks so much for watching, you guys. Feel free to let me know in the comments below what you watched in 2022, what you loved, what you hated. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And I invite you to subscribe, and hope to see you back here soon.